Awesome. Okay, well, we might as well get started. So I'm really excited today. We've got an awesome tool that we are going to be talking about. So we might as well just jump right in. So we've got three people on the call that will be speaking today. So I'm Amy, so I'm part of the marketing team at A2X. We've also got Tracy, who is a product manager at A2X. So she's been heading up this new Shopify tool. And then we've also got Caitlin, who's one of our partners at OTIT. And so she's going to talk about her experience with the tool as well. So a little bit of an overview of what we're going to cover. So I'll first start by just talking about the A2X for Shopify integration, I guess why it exists and the challenges of Shopify accounting. We're then going to talk about some of the challenges that still exist, even with the Shopify integration that we have, and then why we've built this tool and kind of where it has come from. Tracy's then going to give a demo of the report and show you how it works. And then we're going to hear from Caitlin, who's been using the tool for quite a few weeks now, and she can just talk about her experience. And then we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions as we go, please feel free to pop them in the Zoom chat, and we will get to those at the end. Okay, so just a little bit of a background about A2X if you're new to A2X. So A2X is an e-commerce accounting integration. So we integrate with Amazon, Shopify, eBay, Etsy, Walmart, BigCommerce. And then on the accounting side, we connect to Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, and NetSuite. So A2X helps businesses, accountants, and bookkeepers automatically reconcile their payouts from these sales channels in their accounting software. So the reason that A2X exists is that e-commerce accounting is really challenging, and particularly for Shopify. So why is that? Specifically with Shopify. So if you are a Shopify seller, it's highly likely that you have a bunch of different payment options on your Shopify store. So these generally called payment gateways. So you will be receiving a payout from Shopify payments, but then it's likely you'll also be seeing a bunch of different payments coming through from other payment gateways. And this is things like PayPal, Afterpay, Klarna, things like that. So that gets really challenging when you're trying to tie those payouts that you're receiving back to the orders that those were for. The other thing to keep in mind is there are a bunch of different transactions that can happen on Shopify. So a lot of sellers will just see the money hitting their bank account in their Xero or QuickBooks, and they might just think that entire amount is just for sales, and it's very easy just to code that to a sales account. But there is a whole bunch of different transactions that you need to be accounting for as well. So there's shippings, discounts, refunds, fees, all sorts of things. And then the other thing to keep in mind is tax. So particularly with Shopify, it's a brilliant tool in that you can sell to people just down the road, but it also opens up a whole opportunity to sell to people overseas, which is brilliant, but it does bring some complications, particularly around tax and also with multi-currency as well. So all of these reasons are why A2X exists. So it's not all doom and gloom. A2X does help with a lot of these challenges. So how it works is you set up an A2X account and then you connect your Shopify store, and it brings in all of the different transactions, the raw data from Shopify comes into A2X. A2X will then organize all of that data into an organized summary. So what that looks like is you'll have one transaction that covers, just jump to the next one. Well, you'll have one entry that will be posted through to your accounting software that it covers all of the different orders. So it's a nice summary and it will be put into the right time period. It will then be sent through to your accounting software and it will match perfectly with the money you've received. So you'll see a bank deposit from Shopify payments, and then you'll see the A2X summary and you'll be able to reconcile that payout. There's also a whole bunch of other benefits with Shopify and A2X in that we include a raw data file attached, and then you can always be sure that the transactions are coded to the correct time period for which they occurred. The benefit of that is then you will have all of the transaction data or all of the, accounting information to run the reports that you need. So you can see here that this is actually a multi-channel seller. They've got Amazon and they've also got eBay, and then they've got Shopify there as well. So these accounts or these chart of accounts can be created by A2X for you. And I guess in a nutshell, what it means is when you start using A2X, we can set you up with the accounts you need in your accounting software and start helping you to reconcile your payouts. The one point that I did want to make here is A2X is committed to accuracy. So although we have this brilliant integration, Shopify is still really challenging for a bunch of reasons that Tracy's going to dive into in a moment. But this tool is our commitment to accuracy. So we often see all of the fantastic reviews that our customers leave for A2X, and it shows that A2X is a solution that's really loved by its customers. So we're really appreciative of that. And we do want you to know that we care about your accuracy. It's one of our top values, as well as transparency. So as I say, Shopify is complicated. We're going to delve into that a bit more, but this tool is our commitment to accuracy. So if there are differences in your data, we want to make sure that we're helping you identify those and providing ways that you can rectify that information. Brilliant. So I'll now hand over to Tracy, who's going to talk a little bit more about the existing challenges with Shopify.
So I just wanted to introduce myself quickly. My name is Tracy. I'm the product manager for our Shopify product here at A2X. And before I joined A2X, I was also a user of A2X on a daily basis, both running a practice for e-commerce and also working just day to day with my clients. And so I went through a process back in the day of looking at all of the connectivity tools between Shopify and Xero, which was the general ledger product I used, and made the decision that A2S was best in breed for myself and my practice, and loved the product so much, eventually joined the team at A2X to drive the product forward for the future. But I'd like to start the presentation today to talk to you about why, even though we're committed to accuracy, we do have differences between Shopify and A2X from time to time. Those of you that have used A2X in the past might resonate with some of these examples. Those of you that are new, I think will also understand, even if you're using another connectivity tool or just doing your own thing between Shopify and QuickBooks or Xero, the challenges are very, very numerous. So the first challenge that I'd like to take you through is A2X is obviously a connectivity tool. We look at one SaaS solution and we move information into another SaaS solution. And the one we're talking about today is Shopify. And Shopify is a very large, complex system and issues changes, sometimes on a daily basis, just like we can do at A2X as well. Most of the time we're in front of the curve and we anticipate those changes and the user's experience is seamless. But sometimes changes are pushed out that we're not aware of in terms of Shopify hasn't communicated that ahead of time. This could be deliberate. This isn't any comment on how those systems interact, but we will find that out by customers reporting that to us. We will get then on the issue very quickly and resolve it. And so this is something that's beyond A2X's control, but it's a reality that we face as we work with Shopify. So that's called the Shopify changelog. That's the first reason that we can see differences between our data. One of another very, very common example of the reasons our differences might be evident when you're reconciling your A2X data is what I call unique or edge case scenarios. We're all very familiar with Shopify, and in a really summarized way, it can be as simple as a user places an order, they make a payment through a checkout process, and Shopify processes the order. And A2X will do that correctly every day of the week. But we have a lot of edge cases where complexity sneaks in, where, for example, a user might place an order. Within 10 seconds, they've changed their mind. They realize they've checked out for a large instead of a medium. They immediately change that order. Perhaps they also change their mind on the way they want to pay for that order. So perhaps they want to use a gift card, for example, for 10% and a normal payment for the remainder. All of these individual events A2X has to interpret and represent. And sometimes that timeline can span over not just a matter of a few seconds, but a few months. So we do our best to get things correct, but from time to time, new edge case scenarios present themselves that require us to do more investigation and rectification. And that's another example where our two comparison sources of data might be different. And the third example I wanted to cover with you, these are just three of many, of course, but these are probably the most common, is the fact that Shopify works in what we call a plug and play marketplace. So Shopify right now on Last Google claims to work with over 8,000 SaaS solutions in the Shopify marketplace. That's an enormous number. And there are some that we see time and time again, and I'll give you a few examples. Obviously, we've got things like Facebook Marketplace, the Buy with Prime integration with Amazon, TikTok Shop. The screen I'm showing you here is in the returns and exchanges area. So we've got things like Returnly, and well, you can see all the examples I'm showing you here. Each time we encounter an integration with a new SaaS solution in the Shopify marketplace, new challenges are presented. Sometimes, fortuitously, things just work as expected, but sometimes they don't. And that's because the API connectivity between the app and Shopify is controlled by those two companies. And we have to understand what the third-party app has done retrospectively. Sometimes apps can change data using a date from the origination. So for example, if you place an order on 1st September, and then you make an order change in October or November, sometimes the apps make the change with the 1st September date, and that causes a lot of confusion between all of the data systems that have to communicate. So let's just move past the reasons that the data might be different between Shopify and A2X and talk about what our users have done historically to rectify or investigate those situations. We want to be upfront that it's been a challenging space, and here's the reason why. A2X, the secret sauce in A2X is we provide summarized data. So all of the detail doesn't go into a system like Xero or QuickBooks. We provide summarized payouts, but sometimes an order isn't being represented correctly. And you want to look at the orders information. And because we post on a summarized basis, you have to work backwards from a grouped amount to an individual amount. So those of you that are A2X users in the room might relate to this. So what I'm showing you next is something called an A2X Finance Summary Report. This is a report that we've had in our suite of tools for a number of years now, and many of you may be familiar with this. And this is where users are able to conclusively say, A2X says this for a particular date range, Shopify says that, and I've got a difference. So we've given that tool to users for a number of years, and it's incredibly helpful. But let's say you've identified a difference. You can see your gross sales is $122 on the A2X side, and maybe it's $150 on the Shopify side. You've got a difference of $28. How do you figure out where that difference came from? What you might do next is you might try and work out the day the difference happened, and you might open something called a settlement in the A2X side. And this settlement is aggregated, as I mentioned, on a summarized basis. So this screen print I'm showing you shows you maybe hundreds, if not thousands of orders worth of data. And you'll see there's a little hyperlink in here saying you can download the raw data file. And if you choose to do that, you see a screen something like this in a CSV format inside of Excel. And that gives you all of the individual orders that are contained in that group summarized statement. All of this is incredibly valuable information, but you can appreciate you might be looking for a needle in a haystack in that you're trying to work out what that $28 difference is. So maybe you do a control F on this and you look for the value 28. Maybe you've got some other ways that you work through this, but hopefully you're understanding it's possible, but it's been a challenging process to try to reconcile that difference. So what we're delighted to do today is announce something we've been working and cooking in the oven for just over a year, and it's called the Shopify Reconciliation Report. And we believe this is a game-changing introduction within A2X for Shopify to allow users to look at orders at an individual order level and to know very, very quickly if they've got differences between their Shopify and their A2X data. So what I'm going to do next is chat you through how to use the report. Before I get into the detail, I'd just like to call attention to some of the benefits that the Shopify Reconciliation Report will offer you and your business or your practice. The first thing is that this is a summarized report detailing orders that don't tie out. So we've deliberately put the filter on differences when you run the report. You can export those differences to a spreadsheet to allow you to manipulate the data and investigate further. And if there's an order that catches your attention, you can drill into the order and take a look at the Shopify representation of the order and the A2X representation of the order all in one place. So let's take a look. The first thing I'd like to show you is how you run the reconciliation report. But before I get going, I just thought I'd come back to that scenario I painted a little bit earlier and give you a visual representation of what we used to do previously. So you can see here, this is a screen print. On the left-hand side, it's a copy from Shopify. And on the right-hand side, this is a copy from A2X. And for those of you that have good enough eyesight, you can see the gross sales is 907,874 on the Shopify side, 907,813 on the A2X side. And I put a little calc in the top right-hand corner for you, just showing you the difference. I've calculated 61. Our users could always do this, and this is sort of what has been done in the past. So we've got a $61 difference, but where is that $61? The first thing you need to do as a user to use our Shopify reconciliation report before you run the report is you have to take the data from Shopify, and this is a self-serve process. So I'm not showing you live Shopify today because we obviously want to honor our client confidentiality, but what I am showing you here is a screen print from Shopify, and the yellow highlighted amounts show you where you go in Shopify to download that report. So the user would need to navigate to Analytics, Reports, and then click on a report called a summary report. From there, they will see all sorts of categories on the left-hand side. I've just given you, again, a very selected snip here. We're going to be examining gross sales for our purposes of this demo today, but you can also click into all of these categories if that's where your investigation takes you. And from there, once you open the detail of the gross sales, you need to click on the export button in the top right-hand corner to create a CSV file to then upload it into our A2X system. If you have any questions on that, we've got lots of articles written, and within the Shopify Rec tool, you can click into those articles and follow the step-by-step instructions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to leave the PowerPoint presentation, or excuse me, the Google slide presentation, and I'm going to come over to the A2X side. Okay, so here I am just in a demo client called Shopify Reconcile webinar. And the first thing I wanted to show you before I went any further is how you can enable this beta. And the other piece of amazing news we'd love to share with you today is A2X has made the decision to enable the Shopify reconciliation tool to all A2X subscribed users, irrespective of the plan that you've subscribed to. So we're really, really delighted to make that announcement, and we hope that that demonstrates to you and our community that we are 100% committed to accuracy and transparency here at A2X. And that's the reason we've chosen to make this tool available at all subscription levels. To activate the tool, you have a number of choices within the SaaS application, but probably the most intuitive is if you click on Reports in A2X from today onwards, you should see a new menu option called Reconciliation Report, and to the right, you'll see a little beta flag. So that's one way that you can enable the reconciliation report. That will then take you to this screen. You'll see a little, if it's your first time and you haven't opted into the beta yet, you'll see a little reminder that we now have the rec report in beta, and you can click here on join beta, see a little bit of confetti. And then I've run a bunch of rec reports with this client already. You won't have this experience. You'll have a blank screen, of course, but this is the screen you will then return to again and again to run the reconciliation reports. There is another navigation pathway if you choose to follow it, where you can go from reports through to our finance report. Many of you may be familiar. This is a report that's been available for a number of years. And there is a way that you can start your reconciliation from this menu option as well. And then finally, we've got 3 ways you can opt in at the moment. You can also go to settings, beta features, and this is always where you can return again and again to take a look at what new functionality we have available that you might like to participate in. And you can click in from this screen as well. So lots of ways to find the reconciliation report. To run the report, we'll start here from the reconciliation report menu item that I showed you previously. And you can see along the top, you've got a little text box here where you can enter a date range and a reconciliation type. So let's go back to that example I showed you earlier where we had a $61 difference between gross sales, and that was for the month of October. So I'm going to go in this client back to the 1st of October to the 31st. I'll try and answer some questions on the fly that I'm anticipating may come in. That date range is open-ended. So you can, for example, run 2 or 3 months at a time or just a week at a time. The only limitation is to do with the file size upload. At the moment, that can be no larger than 32 megabytes. So if you have a file that's larger than that, you will have to break your date range down into smaller increments to do your comparison. Once you've put in the date range, you then have a reconciliation type, and that menu is dynamic or customized based on the categories that Shopify is showing in their finance report. So you can see we can do comparisons on gross sales, but we also have lots of other ways we can do comparisons, both on the income statement or P&L side and on the payment method side as well. So if you want to reconcile Afterpay, for example, because you're not tying out between A2X and Shopify there, you have that ability. So we're going to do gross sales, and we're going to then click on Create Report. Now, depending on the size of the upload, it may take a few seconds. So just be prepared to wait a little bit. When you click on Create Report, it then brings you to a screen where you remember we created a CSV in a step previous, and the CSV needs to be inserted into this modal and submitted. Now, we have introduced some validation here at A2X around making sure that you're putting the right set of data inside the right date frame. So if you, for example, try to import a discounts in a gross sales comparison, or you upload the month of October, but you actually have put a date range in of November, you will get a message from ourselves explaining that the dates don't appear to match or the type of information doesn't match. And there are some articles that we've provided to you to help you troubleshoot that as well. If the data match is successful, you'll be returned to the screen and you can see there is a processing report. And if you then refresh this report, hopefully we'll be done and we can take a look at that difference. And there it is. So before I click into the report, I'd just like to draw your attention to what this summary screen is telling you, because in itself, this is quite helpful. You can see that I ran this report. I'm here in Australia, so it's on the 7th of February. October 1st to 31st is the date range I've done the analysis for. And the system has identified I have 4 differences, and the difference is $61. So straight away, before I even click in, you might remember from the slide I showed you previously, I knew that was the difference I was expecting. And if this difference doesn't match up, there's potentially an issue with the data you've uploaded, or perhaps you need to get in touch with us to get some problem solving going on. But I'm very satisfied with that because that's what I was expecting to see. So I'm now going to click into this reconciliation report and take a look at the 4 results that contribute to the $61 difference. And here they are. So this screen is what we're calling the differences screen. And I'm just going to chat you through what the screen looks like, and then we'll do some digging and I'll explain to you what these differences might be attributable to. The differences screen will only show differences, and this is not a customized filter at the moment. But if you would like to see all of the comparison that was done, that is possible. And I'll start there. So you'll see we have a download ability here in the top right-hand corner, and you actually have 3 choices of data that you can download. The first is differences only, and what that will do is create a CSV file of those 4 rows that I'm showing you visually right now. The second is all. I won't show you this again because of privacy reasons today, but please feel free to experiment. If we select that, that will then create in your downloads folder a CSV file of every single order in the Shopify export versus every single order that A2X has read for the month, and you will see them all in a CSV file. Obviously, most of them will have 0 differences. And then the third option is the Shopify upload. And that might seem very intuitive to you, like why would you need to see something you just uploaded? But consider a situation where maybe you had a staff member doing this 2 weeks ago. You're now trying to investigate this, and you're asking yourself, at what point in time was that CSV created? Because Shopify is a live system, and things that show today don't necessarily show the same way tomorrow. So this is the way you can actually confirm what set of events or what piece of data was uploaded into the system as at that particular point in time. The other things I'd like to show you about this screen is these columns are sortable, and that's quite helpful, particularly if you've got hundreds of differences. You might like to sort high to low, for example, and start your investigation at the most material difference. And at the bottom, we have something called a reprocess report. This is quite helpful if you make changes, for example, to Shopify or A2X, and you'd like to take a look at the updated report without having to put all the parameters back in again. So what we're going to do next is we're going to click into one of these orders to try to investigate why we have differences. So to click into the orders, you may have noticed this column 3 is hyperlinked. So each of these orders can be drilled into, and you can drill into them straight from this screen, or you can right click and open in a new tab, which is what I'll do. And when you open up that order screen, you are presented, we hope, with a real treasure trove of information that's brand new for you and your practices or your business. And this hopefully will provide everything you need to figure out why A2X and Shopify are not matching at that order level. So let's chat through what the order screen offers you in terms of information, and then we'll talk about why that difference may have been created as well. So the first thing I'd like to draw your attention to is this little message that's saying this is a real-time live Shopify order. That's a super important point to make because with Shopify, as I just mentioned previously, things can change. So if you looked at an order yesterday and then you look at it again today, it may not show you the same data. And that's different than an accounting system often where we lock our periods and it's not possible to change dates once they're recorded. Shopify doesn't have those restrictions. So if you've got a user that's coming into your system and looking at this order today for a report that was uploaded last week, you may not be able to lock off those figures if Shopify has changed their figures in the interim. We're making a live call to Shopify to give you that order right now. There are three sections that we offer you around the Shopify order. The first is a summarized values. So we can see very quick snapshotty information like the long order ID number, the order status, the currency the order's in, and some of the summarized financial totals. The second section is called transactions, and that section is to do with financial transactions. So this is where an order has been captured, authorized, processed, and if a client has made the payment for the order in more than one way, for example, gift card, and then Shopify payments, you would see two rows present here. And the third order is a little snapshot of the SKUs that were sold within the order. So you can see in this particular example, we had two SKUs sold for $199 each. You've probably also noticed we've got lots and lots of hyperlinks within the Shopify order screen where you can click and read more details about what each section means. The second half of the screen is the A2X representation of that data. So again, I won't click through the settlements, but these are hyperlinked. And if you want to do so, you can click here and that will return you back inside of A2X to the summarized statement that contains this order. And hopefully you can see the magic of this introduction of this tool is now you can have a visibility over an order and also what the summarization the order was included in. So you've got the best of both worlds here. And you can see A2X has actually read this order twice, once in October through an area called No Gateway, and a second time in the month of September through Shopify payments. And if you wish, you can consolidate those orders. This is functionality we hope to offer in the future, but for now, you could take this yourself into Excel, for example, and crunch them down to take a look at an individual representation of that order to help you from an accounting perspective. So let's ask ourselves why we might have had a difference here. So I'm just going to return you to the differences screen and remind you that in this particular instance, Shopify said we had $199. A2X said we had $0. And you're probably thinking, well, that doesn't sound right because A2X did have that order reflected twice, didn't it, in the settlements? But remember, we're doing a comparison on the month of October here. And if you look at the individual data inside of Shopify and A2X, you may notice that that Shopify payment in A2X was actually brought across in the month of September, not October. And that's why we're showing a $0 value is because it's a date-bound criteria. And we did process the order, but we processed it in the month previous. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time explaining to you about differences, but this is a perfect example that we see from time to time about a date mismatch. So what's happened, I've taken a look at the real order in Shopify, and that's something I should point out now. You can do the same if you have collaboration access to Shopify or it's your own store. If you click on this View Order in Shopify button, that will take you straight to that order in Shopify. So you can have that on one screen, you can have this on another, and you can go back and forth and say, what in that history and timeline section has resulted in this result in A2X? And what in fact has happened is the client has sold two SKUs in the month of September, and a refund has been processed in the month of October, resulting in just one SKU being sold at the end of the day. So on the Shopify side, we've got the two sales shown in September, the refund showed in October. And remember, we're doing a gross sales comparison, so a refund is a separate line. So we're not showing that in our differences report because of the filter we put on it. And we have a net result of one SKU. Whereas in A2X, we showed the two SKUs in September, and we showed the refund in October. And sorry, I'm just realizing I should clarify. Even though Shopify shows those 2 SKUs in September, if you had gone over to Shopify, you'll actually see what really happened on the Shopify side is a sale in September, a sale in October, a refund in October. So that's why we're showing the sale on the Shopify differences report, but no sale in A2X. So arguably A2X has captured this even more correctly, would be my vote, but you can make your own determinations when you look through these comparisons. And this is quite common. And this is back to my comment about third-party apps getting involved. This is a really normal issue where third-party apps will go back and change the past. They'll go back and change a date that we've already read. So at the end of the day, to give you comfort, A2X has represented this order exactly right. But we've done it over a 2-month time period to show correctly the sale in September, the refund in October. Whereas Shopify has shown both of these sales originally in September, the refund in October. You can see the devil's in the detail, but live to date, it's been represented correctly. All right, I'm going to go over now to that second example, and then we'll move on. So the second example here is where we do have an A2X value and a Shopify value, but they're different. And for those eagle-eyed amongst you, you may notice on this very bottom one, we have actually double. A2X has read double the sale that Shopify has. So let's click into that order and take a look. So in this order, I've taken a look at this previously so I can explain it to you. This is an interesting example back in October for this particular client where Shopify introduced a brand new way of selling called Markets Pro. And Markets Pro is a really cool initiative to allow, say, clients located in Canada to sell to the United States or United States to sell to China, for example. And a third party takes care of all of your extra charges, duties, customs, import, those sorts of things. And in this month, A2X realized this had happened, and we introduced some really innovative releases around capturing Markets Pro correctly. And you can see in Shopify, and this is why, for example, you might notice we've got a $289 sale, but a $437 checkout. The difference in those two is all of these extra charges to do with Markets Pro. And when we scroll down to the A2X side, you'll see that we captured the same sale twice. We captured it first in the no gateway. This is that bottom area I'm showing you here. And this is where A2X got itself a little confused initially. You can see that we picked up the sale for $289. We could see the total checkout was for the $430 or $437. But there was something in the middle that we totally initially didn't read correctly, this $263. And during this month, we introduced a very quick release to pick up all of that detail that was related to that 263, which were things like shipping label, import tax, customs duty. And this visual I'm giving you here is an example of a client where we read it initially, and then we pulled it in a second time correctly. And what the client would need to do, obviously, or ourselves, is remove the first instance. But you will see this from time to time as we're pushing changes out in A2X. So I thought that one might interest you as well. So this is an example where A2X has read it twice. Shopify obviously has just had the original order represented once. And in situations like this, we would expect you maybe to take it this far, and then you might need to reach out to our customer success department to say, I can see this order has been read twice by A2X, where to from here? But in this instance specifically, we would have been on the ball. We would have been communicating with you through email to say, we've released Markets Pro. So we would have been very, very familiar and comfortable having this conversation with you. And of course, this would have been a client. This is obviously a sample client I'm showing you where we've done this on purpose. You wouldn't see a duplication of a settlement inside a client without your prior approval. So hopefully that's been very helpful for you to see how quickly you can start to troubleshoot using our tool in the future versus the information you had available to you historically. The other thing I'd like to show to you, I'm just going to go back to reconciliation reports quickly, is we also have this area on the top called search by order number. So this is also, we feel, a very, very useful way that you can look at orders without having to go through the time involved in running a reconciliation report if a specific order interests you. So of course, you can run the rec report and drill through by order, as I've shown you previously, but you might want to shortcut that process. And you might, for example, have a client or yourselves that have put in a new integration, for example, TikTok Shop. and you'd like to see how A2X is representing that data, and you've got an order from your Shopify side that is TikTok Shop. So what I'm going to do is, just to shortcut the process, is I'm going to grab an order number. Now, in this demo, you might notice I'm just in an environment called staging. I have to use a long order number, but for yourselves in real A2X, you just have to use that 5-digit number that you see from Shopify. So for example, what I mean by the 5-digit number, if I go back to the differences report, see if I can get back there here. Oh, there it was there. It's just that 282271. It's the number that you're very, very familiar with, that you would see in Shopify all of the time. So this is the order number here in this column 2 that you would punch in. But for purposes of this demo, as I mentioned, I just have to use the long order number. Both work. And that will then, as you can see, shortcut you straight to the orders page, which we think is an incredibly valuable tool for you in your day-to-day work. So that concludes the demo of the Shopify reconciliation tool. We hope that you agree that it's a pretty exciting innovation from A2X, and we think it's going to be really game-changing in giving yourself confidence and accuracy in your numbers. So where I would like to finish off is, okay, you've shown me this rec report. It looks cool, but where would I use it in practice? Like, why would I want to involve this report or use it on a daily basis? And here's the first way, because I should have mentioned this maybe at the beginning. The dilemma for us is, if A2X is working properly, you shouldn't need this tool because there'll never be any differences. And I'm showing you an example of that right now. So there are many, many examples that I can give you. And we hope this would be the experience that you have most of the time, where when you compare your gross sales or any other category back between A2X and Shopify, you will have no differences. That's the expected behavior. But if you are an accountant, or perhaps you're an internal finance member, or even if you just want peace of mind as a business owner, you may like to run the report anyway, just to conclusively say, yes, this ties out left and right. And you could screen print this, for example, and put it in a work paper, or have a file storage system where you keep that information to prove to yourself. So it's a tick in a box and a checklist, a quality control exercise that you might like to involve. The second is where I've spent most of the time showing you the demo. You have noted a discrepancy and you'd like to investigate that discrepancy. And this tool is going to get better and better over time. You can copy and paste it into work papers. It's the first step in your investigation process before you reach out to ourselves at A2X for further assistance. So I hope you've enjoyed this demo. I hope I haven't talked too much, but it's a full-featured release, and I've shown you most of it. Feel free to reach out with questions. And now I'd love to pass over to Caitlin to talk to us about the client side of experience. Thank you very much.
My name's Caitlin. I work for audit, bookkeeping, and accounting, and we have been using this tool for a few months now. We do a lot of historical cleanups and reconciliations for our clients. We specialize in e-com, Shopify partners and sellers, and so we are loving this tool because it allows us to find any discrepancies, ensure that we are pulling in a full and accurate history for our clients, and ensuring that everything is good to go. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I love the tool. I love how easy it is to use. It's allowed us to cut back on a lot of back and forth with our customer support with A2X. It allows us to solve problems internally and make sure that everything is accurate. And yeah.
Caitlin, I might just jump in and ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
So would you like to comment on the time it took you maybe to investigate a difference pre and post the tool? Would you say it's been time saving?
It's been definitely time saving. Having to compare raw data files by hand is quite time consuming, especially with some higher volume clients where you were looking at thousands of orders per payout. This allows us to really just drill down into where the discrepancies are, and we can see if it's a potential user error, or if it is in fact, like you mentioned, Tracy, that it could be a Shopify error that is taking place, especially with all of the new social media apps and everything that is now being introduced into Shopify. This helps us keep on top of it.
And maybe the last question for you, Caitlin, is now, I believe you and your practice have been using the tool maybe for 2 or 3 months now, is that right?
That's about right, yep.
Yeah. Have you changed any of your processes and procedures to incorporate the tool? And that is to say, something you're checking in with before you close out a month end?
Yes, this is a tool that we use to compare every single one of our month ends. So we make sure that it's allowing us to make sure that all of our settlements and data is pulling through accurately. And then also, if there are discrepancies or differences, we can drill down and look at the order details and see where those items are. Maybe this is something that crosses over between one month and another. We are able to troubleshoot and problem solve those internally rather than any extra work. It cuts down on so much time, that's for sure.
Oh, that's so great to hear. And then maybe, sorry, last question is, when you do use the tool and you identify a difference that you're certain is a difference because the tool lets you make that decision so much more quickly, are you finding that shortcutting your communication with our customer success team to just say this is the problem?
Yes, definitely. We can identify, say, here's the problem, here's the information, and it turns into a very easy solution, and it's a very quick solution as well, so that we're not escalating things to the dev team as frequently, or we're not spending all of that time with dozens of spreadsheets and like finding in the control Fs and everything like that. We're just, here's your information, here's where the difference is, here's where we can repair the information and the settlement, and it's done, taken care of.
Thanks, Caitlin. Really appreciate you being part of a beta. And for the rest of you listening, we're always keen to work with you on future betas. And it's been a great opportunity to learn more about the tool before we released it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. The other point I would just make is if you are a seller and you're not working with an e-commerce accountant, A2X has a directory on our website. I think if you just search for A2X directory or find it directly on the website, we work with a bunch of awesome e-commerce accountants, practices that specialize in Shopify or Amazon. So when you're talking to them, they actually understand what you're talking about. So OTIT's listed in there, so jump on and have a look. Yeah, we've got a bunch of awesome practices that we work with. So reach out if you're in the market for a new accountant. The other point that I just wanted to cover, we've had a bunch of questions come through, which is awesome. So we'll run through those in a second, but I've just got a couple of little wrap-ups and then we'll get into the questions. So the first one here is that we have also just released a new tool for Amazon. So you might have seen the webinar that we did last week. We've just released what's called the Amazon Summary Report. So this is similar to the Shopify Finance Summary Report that Tracy was showing you earlier, where you can very easily compare your data from Amazon to the data that you have in A2X. So you can easily identify changes. At this stage, it doesn't drill down to the level that the Shopify report does, but it's a really, really useful tool to be able to identify those issues and, again, just make sure that everything's tying back to Amazon. Both of these tools, both the Amazon Summary Report and the Shopify Reconciliation Report, are now in beta. So you can turn these on in your accounts by going to the settings and then the beta features. So you'll have the option to join the beta and you'll see the confetti that Tracy showed before and it'll be turned on. And then both of the reports will then be available under the reports navigation in the menu. And then the final place that I would just say to keep an eye on is the What's New section. So when we're releasing new features or any changes within A2X, we put a little update in the What's New section. So keep an eye on that space and you'll be able to see anything new that's coming out. And like Tracy said, if you are really interested in testing new features, reach out to us because we're always on the lookout for people to provide feedback. And even if you're just trying these new reports and you have feedback, reach out. We're always keen to hear it. If you've got suggestions on how we can make the tool better or just general thoughts, send them our way. Awesome. So that brings us to the end. And so we'll jump into some of the questions. I'll read them out, and then it's highly likely that I'll call on probably you, Tracy, so that, and maybe Caitlin as well.
Yep.
Okay, brilliant. So the first one we have is roughly how many Shopify transactions can that data limit handle? So I'm guessing this is in the upload modal.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you might remember at the beginning of the session, I mentioned that we have a maximum size limit of the file upload of 32 megabytes. We did some testing around some extremely large clients that A2X handles that have orders in the thousands, and from memory, it was tens of thousands, and we were successful. I don't have an exact number because obviously every order has got a different size limit, but we would be very surprised that you would have a month's worth of data you wouldn't be able to upload. And if you did, and you got the message saying that the file size upload was too large, you can break it into weeks, for example, and manage the process that way.
Brilliant. Okay, next question. So is the reconciliation tool available on the mini version as well? So as Tracy said earlier, yes, this tool is available for all A2X users. And one point we did just want to keep in mind is that the tool will actually identify any difference. So even if there's a difference as small as, 1 cent. So one point we would just encourage is to apply, consider whether the difference is material. So our customer success team is definitely on hand and happy to assist, but the support they provide might sort of vary depending on the size of your plan. So yes, it's available on all plans. Keep in mind the size of the difference, and the CS team will be certainly on hand to help you if the difference is material. Is there anything else to add, Tracy? I kind of just jumped in and answered that one.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so the next questions are actually, I think you might have answered them as you went, so it kind of was identifying or asking why there were differences, but then I can see that they've said, oh, the two SKUs make sense now. So I think we've answered those. I can see Teresa, it's awesome. We've got a couple of our partners on the call as well. So thanks for joining in, guys, and thanks for the feedback. I can see that Teresa's identified that it's, or made a note that it's going to save her a bunch of time. I think she actually said further down that she was expecting that this will save her between 2 and 6 hours a month, which is awesome. We love to hear that. So the next question is, I see the Shopify reconciliation webinar button at the top of the reconciliation screen. Is that a training webinar similar to this one? So we do this, and there was another question also asking if this webinar is recorded. So it definitely is. We'll send that out afterwards. There are a bunch of resources available that talk about how to use the tool. Tracy's got some awesome support articles that cover lots of different situations. If you are identifying differences, if you're not seeing differences, and those are linked within the app. I don't think there's a video within the app, but we can definitely provide additional material if it's required to how to use the tool. Okay, next one. This one's definitely for you, Tracy. How do I know if I do have month-end discrepancies?
I can start, but Caitlin probably can add to this one too. So I would maybe suggest 2 reasons. And Humphrey, I'm not sure if you're an accountant or a business owner, because you may come at this slightly differently. On the accounting side, if you are doing reconciliations of the A2X clearing accounts and you have a discrepancy you can't reconcile, so you expect to see that, for example, the balance of the clearing account returned to 0 or a timing issue at month end, and it does not, there's probably potentially one of the explanations would be a difference between the two. And the second is, as you might remember when I did the demo, I started you out with showing you pull up the finance summary report on the right, pull up the A2X virtual finance summary report on the left, put in your date range, compare your values, and if you have a difference there, that's when you want to be using the tool. Caitlin, anything else you wanted to add in there?
No, I don't think so. It's
Is that sort of the process you guys use?
That is the process we use. Yeah, we usually run the tool usually by the 4th or 5th day into the next month to ensure that all Shopify payouts include all the date range and data that we need, and we'll run the report.
Awesome.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. The next one is talking about the clearing account. So I'll read it out and then it kind of sounds similar to the process that we do use, Tracy. So feel free to provide just a context of our payment gateways. But it just says, any chance that A2X has considered providing a reconciliation by order, meaning that when the sale is posted, the payment goes to a clearing account, then when the payment comes in, it offsets in the clearing account. At the end of the month, anything that has no payment yet should match to the balance of the clearing account. We find that error hides in the clearing accounts, and this would be a helpful tool.
Yeah, I can give a two-part answer there. So Jamie, the process you've described there is exactly right, and that's the process you should be moving through. The challenge is obviously the A2X posting when it's coming in is summarized, and obviously on the other side of the clearing account are the actual bank deposits, the third-party bank gateway is made. So it's not sometimes as easy to look for the same number on the left and right, and there's a process you need to move through. But we here at A2X are laser focused on making your reconciliation processes easier, particularly in the clearing account area. And stay tuned. I mean, obviously, I can't really share much more, but I just want you to know that we hope to provide tools for you in the future where you will be able to do some drilling, and A2X will start to provide some coaching around that process and help you understand some obvious automation that you might be able to implement in your clearing account processes. But the process you've described there is the right way. And we certainly are looking at that space to make your lives easier as well.
Tracy, can I add something? That you can run this reconciliation tool by payment gateway as well. So if you want to know why there's a difference in, say, PayPal or Amazon Pay, you could drill down and have those discrepancies identified in the exact orders that the other payment gateways are showing.
Nice.
Thanks, Caitlin. That's a great point.
Brilliant. So the next question is, when is this expected to go full release?
Well, Amy, I guess that's a you and me. We don't have a hard date. I think the A2X philosophy is we'll put it out in beta for the indefinite future to make sure that we've anticipated most of the feedback. But of course, we don't know what we don't know. So this is still an opportunity to say for yourselves, it would be great if it did this, that, and the other thing, or I found this issue. We really want to make sure all the wrinkles are ironed out first. So I would expect it would be a few months.
Definitely. And then there'll be an announcement when it's out of beta. Cool. So the next question is, can we post journal entries for the differences?
Humphrey, I assume you mean for the clearing account. And the quick answer is yes, but that's probably not in the remit of this particular webinar, but feel free to, I'm not sure if you're an accountant or you're a direct seller. If you're a direct seller, maybe chat with your accountant about how that process might be managed. And of course, our customer success team is on hand at any time to have these conversations as well.
Awesome. Okay, so the next one is looks like they're trying to get access to the tool. It might be that it's being turned on as we speak. I know that the beta was going to go live today, so we'll follow up with the team. You should be able to get access, but if you have any issues on any of your accounts, just reach out and let us know, but you should be able to access that as of today. And then the next one is, I'm an accountant who needs A2X training. Okay, brilliant. So I've just read through there. So it sounds like you're looking to get some training on A2X. This is actually a really good question because A2X does have a partner program that you can sign up for. So if you have a look on the A2X website and have a look at the accounting section, we have a partner program that any accountant is welcome to join. As part of that program, we also have training modules that you can do that will take you through the general, there's a lot of modules actually, but it will talk about general e-commerce accounting and then a specific tool. So definitely reach out to that. Definitely sign up for that program if you're wanting to know more and get more skilled up in A2X. Okay, so the next one is from Teresa. When it comes to multi-currency entries going into and out of pending payments, is there a plan to deal with the differences that are created due to the differences in exchange rate between the item when into the pending payments and when the payment comes through the pending payments? We have a manual process for those differences.
I can take that one to start. Teresa, it's an excellent question, and we're aware of that challenge when you work through your month-end reconciliations. At the moment, we don't have an automation solution for that issue other than the process you've described about the manual process. But we do have a bigger project, which I alluded to before. This is much further down on our roadmap to look at the challenges an accountant experiences when they reconcile their clearing accounts on a month-end basis and tools we can provide in that space. And that is certainly on the list. So for now, unfortunately, this is a situation, for example, where the exchange rate that's pushed in on the A2X side is say 1.3, and then maybe when the bank deposit comes in 2 days later, it's 1.31. So you've got a very, very small difference in the exchange rate that unfortunately is beyond A2X's control. So any assistance we'd be providing in that area would be to match down sort of the left and right to expose the difference that would need to be adjusted for.
Awesome. The next question is, when will A2X integrate with FAIR? So we get asked about FAIR and all sorts of other sales channels all the time. So we can definitely register that you've got interest in FAIR. To be honest, a lot of it comes down to the demand, and if we've seen a lot of growth in channels, we'll prioritize sort of building a new integration over some of the existing work that we're doing. So it all kind of comes down to demand, but FAIR is one that comes up all the time, and we'll make a note of that as well. But at this stage, I don't think it's on the roadmap, unfortunately. The next one is, are there any expected bugs or issues as of now?
Well, what I can share with you is we're now in what we call an open beta, but before that, we were doing a closed beta, and we had a number of partners participate with us, of which Caitlin was one of them. So we have had an opportunity for the last 3 months to receive a lot of feedback from the partners in that closed beta about problems they've experienced or feedback they've given. So we feel reasonably confident that that this product should be stable and ready for use. But of course, we don't know what we don't know, and that's why we're still calling this a beta. But no, to answer your question, we're not aware of any expected bugs or issues right now, but that doesn't mean that as we move through this process, we won't have further things we need to correct and refine before we sign it off and take the beta flag away.
And Humphrey's also come back and he said he wasn't meaning for the clearing account. So essentially, when the reconciliation report provides a difference, what do we do with the difference?
Oh, I see. Okay. So Humphrey, I think probably you'd need to take that chat up with your, again, I'm just not clear on whether you are an accountant or you're a direct seller. If you are a direct seller and you have an accountant, that's a conversation I would recommend you take across to them. But our CS department is also, our customer success department is also very, very comfortable with assisting our clients with these sorts of questions as well. And you could raise a ticket in Intercom and ask that question. The answer, unfortunately, would take me a few minutes to cover, and this probably isn't the place to have the conversation right now, but we'd be very happy to point you towards some resources you can have a look at.
So, to be honest, I think that probably almost wraps us up. If someone's interested in joining the closed beta in the future, so we can reach out to you, Jamie, and then another vote for FAIR. So we'll keep that in mind as well, Teresa. But we're just about on the hour. So thank you everyone so much for your questions and your engagement and your support of A2X. We're really excited to hear how you find the tool. So once you see it available on your account, switch it on, have a go, and yeah, provide us with your feedback and how you find the tool. But that's all from us today. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.